Associate.
Associate Dean of Undergraduate Education.
And Teaching Excellence.
And Teaching Excellence, which includes our group. And so she is over a whole slew of people down on the second floor who support success in many ways, student success. She's deeply concerned about student success, which is great that she's in this position because she can support that. She has 3 degrees from UT, so
Yes.
she is a long time, and they're all from Moody College.
No,
Okay,
just my bachelor's.
okay.
Bachelor's in Journalism and Public Relations.
But 3 degrees from UT, so she is a longtime Longhorn with orange blood.
Yeah.
And so take it away, Cassandra.
Thank you, Mary. Welcome. It's great to see all of you. I know that some of you are brand new to Moody and some of you are sort of new to Moody. And so I just want to take this opportunity to welcome you and get you really excited about the semester at hand. My job today is partly fun, partly not fun, because I have to talk about policies and procedures. And these are a lot of the policies and procedures that folks get wrong and why students end up in my office with complaints. So we'll talk a little bit about that, talk a little bit about some things to just think about as you're planning for the semester. But before we jump into all of that, I wanted to actually sort of welcome you with a welcome that we use for our students, to get them excited about the semester, to get them excited in the prospective student phase, about considering UT, about considering Moody College. So just 2 minutes worth. Yay, thank you. I hope that got you as excited as it certainly does with our new students and prospective students. And welcome. I'm really glad to be with you here today. I thought I'd start a little bit just by making sure that we're all on the same page about who our students are in Moody. This is a piece of the puzzle that I think you know a little bit about, and when you go through your interview process and you're selected, we talk about it. But I don't always know that everyone's in the same space. We're expected to have more than 5,000 students this fall. That includes a record high, record large first time in college, our traditional freshman class. We had a excessively successful yield campaign with our first time in college students, and in fact we ended up with several hundred more students than we were expecting. And that, I think, is a really important piece for you all to know, not because I need you to worry about the numbers, that's my job, but to know that the demand for students in Moody College, to be students in Moody College, is huge. and that the work that we've done, the reputation that we have, the way that we teach, and the way that we work with our students has really sort of elevated our reputation on campus. And we are the most in-demand college this year in terms of how far we exceeded our admissions and enrollment projections. So I'm pretty excited about that. So the 5,000 students includes about 4,700 undergrads and about 500 graduate students across our 7 majors, our 4 buildings. It's a lot. These are the numbers from last year. So as you can see, we're going to be about 300 more in the undergrad space. RTF is our largest major, followed by advertising. Journalism and communication studies are very close. And then public relations, communication and leadership, and undeclared. 90% of our undergrads are from Texas. That's because of state law. And we have students from 24 other states enrolling. The piece of these data that I'm really most proud about is the fact that Moody College has the highest 4-year graduation rate of all of the large colleges at UT. We're beat only by the School of Nursing, and they only admit 50 students a year. So if they can't beat me in graduation rates with just 50 students, then they're doing something wrong. But what that means is our commitment to success, our commitment to supporting students, and our commitment to seeing students to and through graduation is something that I'm exceedingly proud of. And you, as faculty, play a really important role in that success because you're part of the culture of success, support, and belonging that we work so hard to create here at Moody. These are our majors, and I wanted to just take this opportunity as we look at the majors to quickly hear from each of you as to what area you're in. I think I know, but I think it's always helpful for us to go around the room and do that. So, Maria, I'll start with you because you're in an interesting situation.
Yes, so officially I'm appointed out of AdPR and also working with undergraduate education.
But talk about your class specifically, why that's special.
So I did a quick intro when I first started, but the thing that I'm really excited about is that I get to have every single Moody freshman in my class. Mm-hmm. And I get to talk to them about each of the majors and get them excited about the different research centers on campus. So if you guys have anything that you would like for me to include that you're doing that's very special, please get in touch with me because I want to make sure that we're representing the new research and the new teaching that's happening in Moody this year as well.
Yeah. Hi, Jordan.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
I'm RTF. I'm an RTF grad and have some of journalism
Awesome.
major.
Good to see you, Jennifer.
Hi. I have my degree. I was a journalism program back when I did PR. So I have a bachelor's of journalism in PR and a bachelor's in communication studies, and I'm teaching in communication studies, and I'll be doing social media and organizations.
Great.
Okay, so I'm in RTF, and I'll be teaching everything related to game studies.
Excellent.
I'm Steve Rossman. I'm doing advertising and PR as well, and I'm teaching brand storytelling.
Yes.
Hi,
Corey.
With radio, television, and film. I've been lecturing for the last 6 years. I'm now joining the faculty full-time teaching sound for film and television.
Yeah, we're very excited.
Yeah.
Our students are very excited as well. All right. So now to the not fun part. The other graphics were the fun part, now the not fun part. And I realized that, somebody has to come in and say all the rules. But really, what I'd like to do is very sort of quickly run through the things that I want you to know and think about, and then have a dialogue, open it up for questions, because I think that tends to be much more productive when you're thinking about your own course and the situations that you are thinking about, or worried about, or have encountered. So the very first thing that I want you to know is that I don't expect you to know or memorize all of these rules and policies. There's an entire team led by me in the Office of Undergraduate Education that specifically works with all of our undergraduate students. My assistant dean, Kyle Clark, my director of advising, Teresa Thomas, and Andreas Alvarado, who's my director of operations. We work with a team of 27 other academic advisors and student support specialists whose job it is to know and understand how rules and policies at UT impact students and to work directly with students to support them. So if you forget everything that I'm going to tell you today, remember, call us, send us an email, call me. If we don't know the answer, we know all the people on campus who do know the answer. so you don't have to spend your time and energy trying to chase that down. And I would much rather you call if you have a question, you're not sure, than guess or give information that's inaccurate, because that has real life consequences for our students, and I want to make sure that we support you and our students. So we are here every single day, 8 to 5. Someone is in the office. Downstairs on the second floor, 2.600, and once the construction is finished, allegedly next Friday, also downstairs in 1.206, you can find someone to help you out. So email's fast, phone is fast, don't hesitate. And I remember from my own experience when I got started teaching here at UT, my reluctance to ask questions or to bother people who I perceived had really important, busy jobs. It is my hope that you bother me. It really is. It is my job. It is not a bother. And as I've mentioned a little bit, our office operates with a philosophy of student success. That is, if we put students at the center of the decisions that we make, then we're making the right decisions. This institution would not function, would not operate without students. And I know sometimes when we're busy with our own research and professional practice, it's sometimes hard to remember that. But without students, we wouldn't exist. And so our philosophy of student success is really that. It's about providing support, removing barriers, and connecting students to all of the amazing opportunities that they may not have even thought of. And that's kind of the way my office operates, and it's the way that I hope you'll consider operating with our office, which is when you see a student who needs support, who isn't succeeding in the way you'd like them to, that you make sure to reach out to us so we can connect that student to the resources that we know are available to help them on that path. It can be serious crises, which we'll talk about in just a minute. It can be something as simple as a student who's just not sure what they're doing, why they're here, why they're in this class, what's going on. We deal with the whole range of that. So among the things that we work on is obviously academic advising. So the very specific advising on degree plans and academic opportunities and how that fits into students' degrees and their progression through the institution. Our degrees have gotten exceedingly complex, and so I generally say to faculty, please don't advise students unless you are 100% certain of your answer, because there's weird things like prerequisites and weird rules like, do you have upper division standing, and all sorts of things like that that get in the way sometimes of well-meaning advice that faculty are giving to students. We also manage scholarships and aid in collaboration with the Office of Scholarships and Financial Aid here at UT. So this is particularly important if you're running into students who are expressing concerns about finances, particularly financial issues that are impacting their ability to be successful in your course. It could be financial issues accessing technology or software. It could be they can't afford to buy a book. It could be I'm going to have to drop out because I don't know how I'm going to pay tuition. We can work on all of that. Care for students' well-being, and we'll talk a little bit about what we mean when we talk about care, but that's particularly health and mental health well-being, and emergency referrals to all of our partners across campus, particularly if students are in crisis or displaying behavior that causes you concern. All right, so a couple quick policies, and I know this is a review for many of you, but if you're new to UT, you may not know that Monday, Wednesday, Friday courses end at 10 minutes to the hour. Tuesday, Thursday classes end at 15 minutes to the hour, and the expectation is that we abide by that so students have the time to sprint across campus. Believe me, it is really hard to get across campus in 10 minutes, so do your best to not keep students late. Classes begin Monday the 21st. That's also a change from those of us who may have attended back when we always started on a Wednesday. We have a full fall break the entire week of American Thanksgiving, November 20th to the 25th. And that is also a change, wherein we used to previously only have the Thursday, Friday. Last class day for this academic year is December 4th. Study days are December 5th and 6th. For those of you who may have been around, they were previously called dead days. We don't call them that anymore. But study days are really, really critical because you, as a faculty member, cannot have a class meeting, have an assignment due, have any class-related activity other than a review session for a final exam on those study days. I know it's tempting because that's a day when you know students don't have other conflicts to have screenings or presentations to clients and things like that, but those days are non-negotiable. They're study days and we can't do anything on them. The other thing that's important is that when your grades are due depends on the day and time that your course meets and if you are offering a final exam. So I say this because every year I'm here calling faculty, begging for their grades to be turned in on time. The very last day that grades for this upcoming year are due are the 14th, but most of the grades are due well before that, the 11th, 12th, and 13th. The 14th is only for a tiny handful of courses that are offering final exams on the very last final exam day. So you don't have a very long turnaround time between the last class day on the 4th and final exams, which are basically the 7th, 8th, 9th, and then grades being due on the 11th and through the 14th. Why do I tell you this when you could look it up? Because every year, faculty make decisions about how much work is due at the end of the semester and forget how quick the turnaround time is for grades. If grades aren't in on time, students don't graduate. And I don't love being the person to call you and bother you to turn in your grades because we have students who are not going to graduate on time. A couple other policies, as I'm sure our fabulous team from Kate have told you, under House Bill 2504, passed in the Texas legislature about a decade ago, instructors must provide each student with a course syllabus on or before the first day of class. And a new policy that is not yet in place but will be next year, so I'm telling it to you now so you can get ready, is that faculty will be expected to use the Canvas LMS. So if you've previously not ever used our Canvas LMS, you will be required to starting next year, so get used to it now. At minimum, you'll be required to use it for your syllabus and assignment grades. And all of the policies and procedures are available in writing at the UT General Information Catalog. Happy to share these slides so you can look at these links yourselves later. Other rules and policies. Students may add themselves to a class or drop themselves from your class through the 4th class day with no intervention from the department or the university. It's all themselves. And the only way that students can get into a course is if a seat is available and they can register themselves for a course. Faculty may not hold seats, promise seats, or say, oh, I'll let you in even though my course is full. That's a policy in Moody that we're very strict about because there's implications for everything from fire code in a room to faculty teaching loads and TA assignments that are made and broken by, oh, I can just add one person. And so for equity and managing all of those rules, faculty can't promise a student a seat in their course. If a student says, but I really need this course, or I have to have this course to graduate, or you've got to let me in, send them to my office. We can discern what's a want and what's a need. And there's a lot of wants that are disguised as needs to graduate, but they're actually wants. We can manage all of that. And if we have to add a student into a course, beyond all of that, it won't happen magically without your knowledge. There is, however, sometimes students who are seeking permission to get into your course because they don't meet the prerequisite. And you as a faculty member have the option to waive a prerequisite into your course. What that means is that the student has not met the prior knowledge expectations for this course in a traditional, understandable way by the institution, and they are begging you to be allowed in. Most of the time, there should be no reason for you to waive a prerequisite. The only exception to that is students who are here on an international exchange often have credentials that are not easily translatable in our degree system that would check and say, oh yes, you have credit for this course. So occasionally an exchange student will come to you and say, I'm in this program of study at my other institution. It says I don't have the prerequisite. Can I tell you about my experience and see if I can be let into your course? We're talking 25 total students across the entirety of the 5,000 students in Moody who might be doing this each semester. But by and large, you don't have to feel the need to waive the prerequisite, but there is a process that if you have a student who you know or who has been talking to you or who has amazing experience outside of the classroom who you would just love to have in your course and your course has available seats, there is a prerequisite waiver form that you can do that with. But the most important thing is not to let students attend your course in the hopes that they're going to get in, because that's always, it doesn't end well. If the course is full now, it's not going to magically open itself back up. And students need to move on and make decisions about their course of study. The registration system is tightly controlled, and it's just not magically going to happen. The other piece to think about is that students can drop a course through mid-semester, which this year is October 23rd. And we ask that all faculty have at least one major assessment where students not only have turned in that assessment but have received a grade on that assessment before October 23rd, because nothing is sadder than a student fearing that they're failing a course but not actually knowing that they're doing just fine and then dropping a course that they could have been successful in. After October 23rd, there's really no option for a student to drop a course unless they have substantial documentable non-academic reasons or they wish to use their one-time exception. And so that's why it's really important that students have a general idea by October 23rd how they're doing, because they're making add-drop decisions based on that. It also means that you can't force a student to drop your course, or you can't tell them that they have to drop a course. Only a student can initiate a drop. Final exam rules. You have probably already been queried by your department about your intent for a final exam, because the final exam schedules are published basically this week, when and where each final exams are. But we strictly follow the rules regarding exams, exam conflicts, study days, and required exam dates. We can work with you if a student says, I have a conflicting exam. We can work through that with you. But probably the biggest complaint that comes through my office from students is faculty violating the no substantial exams or assignments may be given during the last class week or during study days. And that qualifies if the exam or assignment is more than 30% of the final course grade. That's the number one policy that faculty break, and the number one reason why students end up complaining into my office is because faculty have violated that. So, how do you manage this? Don't make everything due at the very end of the semester. Offer a final exam, which can be more than 30%, right? Have your assessments due before then. But better yet, don't have one assignment worth more than 30% of your grade. That's my best advice, is that those are the kinds of classes that really frighten students away, because they think that their entire grade is based on one or two assessments. But this is the number one thing that'll land a phone call from me to you. And it almost never ends well for you all having to, you will have to accommodate having violated that rule. So please do me the favor now and plan accordingly. Any questions about all of these policies that I've run through very, very quickly? It's a lot. And yes, every single undergraduate student complaint comes to my office, so I know all of them.
You might be getting to this, Cassandra, but one of the questions I have is if classes listed as hybrid. Is there, how much time or notice do you need to provide if you're going to switch across to Zoom, as an example?
So the expectation officially with a hybrid course is that the course is a balance of in-person and either synchronous or asynchronous work, and that to the extent possible, the course meeting days and times and locations, whether it's online or not, are listed at the beginning of the semester. Can you quickly switch and pivot? Yes, but that should be the exception rather than the I'll tell you once a week or I'll tell you the night before what modality will be.
Yeah, I'm thinking like if there's an opportunity, if I have a guest speaker and like let's do it via Zoom, or if I'm going to be somewhere else, it would be a total exception.
Yes.
That's the right way to approach it.
Yes,
Okay.
as an exception, absolutely. I want to talk about accommodations for students. The Disability and Access Office, also known as DNA, handles all requests for accommodation under the Americans with Disabilities Act and Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act. Confidentially between us, this office is extremely understaffed for the volume of accommodation requests that we have here at UT, and their process of getting letters to faculty when students need accommodations is very, very slow. What that means is you may have a student approach you at the beginning of the semester or in the first couple of weeks and say, I don't have my letter yet, but I need accommodation. And if they come to you and say that, please believe them. Please believe them. If you are uncertain about an accommodation you are being asked to do in the absence of an official letter, reach out to me. We have been deputized, so to speak, by the DNA office to help faculty work through what is a reasonable accommodation and what is not in the absence of letters. But what we don't want is for a student to not have accommodation because the UT system is exceedingly slow in the first month of every semester. So please don't hesitate to reach out if you have questions about it. If you have questions about what do I do? They're asking for this. I don't know if that's reasonable. We can help work through all of that. And if it's something super complicated, I can accelerate getting things cleared through the DNA office so we can access resources from the DNA office like transcription and interpreters and things like that if necessary. Based on some rough numbers last year, I would estimate probably 30% of your students will have some kind of accommodation. Another area that ends up in my office is academic integrity and academic misconduct issues. There have been really substantial changes to the rules and regulations regarding accusations of cheating, plagiarism, unauthorized use of artificial intelligence, you name it. And because of that, the Student Conduct Office has been revising every single semester the procedures. Probably the most important thing for you to know is that the guiding principle around accusations of academic misconduct and academic integrity issues is due process, which means nothing is ever just handled between a faculty member and a student. You cannot fail a student, take points off of an assignment, or make a student redo an assignment without making a formal accusation of academic dishonesty or academic integrity violation. And there's only two procedures to follow. One, which is you as a faculty member decide you're going to confront the student, give them the opportunity to review the information that you believe is evidence of their misconduct, and come to an agreement with the student about what the penalty is. You both sign a form, and then that form is reviewed by the Office of the Dean of Students. That is a change from prior semesters. It used to be that if a faculty member and a student signed the form, That was it. It was done. It was put on file. It was over. Now the Office of the Dean of Students has the opportunity to review every previously agreed upon faculty disposition and change it, override it, review it, harshen it, weaken it. There is no more only faculty to student. But what you can't do is say, I think you've cheated on this assignment, just redo it for me and I won't report it. That can't be done. And I know that feels harsh for all of us in learning environments trying to help students understand what's acceptable and what's not. But the easiest way to avoid that is to be really explicit and clear in your syllabus and when you're talking with students about assignments about what is acceptable and what's not. And I'm also speaking specifically about use of ChatGPT and other artificial intelligence tools because students need to hear exactly what your expectations are. The second option is administrative disposition, which is you fill out a form online and say, I believe this student has engaged in academic misconduct, and the entire process, start to finish, is managed by the Office of the Dean of Students, including review of evidence, including contacting the student, including discussing with the student, and making a ruling. But either way, the Office of the Dean of Students is going to be involved. Now, you may be asking, why does that occur? It occurs because they're looking for patterns of behavior among students. They're also looking for situations where students have not been provided the option to confront, dispute, or review the charges against them and have been handed a piece of paper by a faculty member that says, if you don't sign this, I will fail you. And believe me, all of those cases have happened here and at many, many institutions all over the country. So the due process, the right to review, to dispute, is all part of the system here at UT. It can be exceedingly frustrating as a faculty member because the process takes time, but it protects us as faculty and it protects students in their due process. And it makes sure that a central place is managing and coordinating all of this, because nothing is more frustrating to find out that a student has been wildly cheating all across the university, except everybody just tried to handle it internally and nobody reported them to the Dean of Students office, and now you find out they've had 5 academic misconduct allegations against them. So, and the more explicit you can be with students about your expectations, what is authorized collaboration, what is not, what tools can students use, what can they not, the easier this process is if you get involved in it. I think there's an overwhelming fear that students are cheating all the time. And let me assure you that our data at UT suggests that is not the case. And that we spend a lot of energy policing and trying to manage that when actually creating authentic assessments that can't be completed by artificial intelligence or aren't found in a test data bank somewhere floating around West Campus are far easier ways to manage this than sort of worrying about and policing. A lot of faculty ask me about the use of the tool Turnitin for detecting plagiarism in written assignments. It's not a great tool. It flags things that maybe shouldn't be flagged and misses things that maybe should be. So Turnitin as a proof of dishonesty is not 100% slam dunk here at the university or in the Office of the Dean of Students, because the technology just isn't that sophisticated to detect plagiarism and AI. So just know that if you ask students to use a tool like Turnitin before they turn in assignments, it's not perfect, and it's not going to tell you everything that you need to know. Questions about anything about academic integrity? I can't quite see, so Shelley, if anyone on Zoom raises their hand, you'll let me know?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually have a question.
Yeah.
Using software to just turn it in or
Yeah.
whatever else softwares. I mean, our student, you probably need to tell students either themselves to use it or that we are going to use on their assignments, right?
If you're going to use that tool, you
Okay.
need to notify students whether you're using it or you're asking them to use it.
Okay, so it would be better than to put it like on the syllabus first.
Absolutely. If that's your preferred method,
Okay.
then you need to notify students day one that that's what you're going to be
Just to
using.
make sure that,
But also know that simply having something flagged by Turnitin doesn't
doesn't
mean that they have
yes,
committed
of course.
academic dishonesty, or
Yeah, of
misconduct.
course.
Yeah,
But just to make sure that, like, everything's.
yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I have to leave.
Oh, sorry, Steve. Yeah. Any questions I can answer for you before you need to run?
No, thank you.
Okay, great.
Thank you so much for this. Okay.
All right. Any other questions about policies before I move to sort of thinking about and supporting our students?
Can I give one?
Yes.
Please come see us if you have any questions about, I've used Turnitin to teach, actually text structure and things like that. So, if you have questions about how to, put that into the assignment, if you're using Turnitin, and also, I talked to them about this. This was a conferencing opportunity, not necessarily a policing opportunity. So, if you're looking for ways to collaborate with your students using that tool or something like
Yes.
that, let me.
Yeah, of course, thanks.
Thanks, Shelley. Appreciate it. So the last thing I want to close with is just some hints and tricks about supporting students. And the part of this equation that I don't think I have to tell you is that helping students to succeed is a huge part of our job. But the other part of this equation that I think bears saying out loud is that increasingly students in higher education across the country, and UT is no exception, are burdened by so many other things in their lives that school sometimes doesn't feel like their first priority. And part of our job is to try and help mitigate as many of those situations as we can so that they can focus on their student success while acknowledging that there's a lot happening in the world that makes focusing on school sometimes challenging. I also want to acknowledge it also makes it challenging for us as faculty. So we are not immune to all of the things happening in the world. But that our philosophy of supporting students and knowing and understanding what they're going through is part of why Moody has the reputation on campus for having the best and most supportive faculty. And I'm not just saying that because I'm Associate Dean. I'm saying it because we repeatedly hear it. We hear it from non-major students who take our courses. We hear it from students who are trying to internal transfer into Moody. And we hear it from surveys that are conducted across the institution. Without a doubt, Moody faculty have the best perception of being the most supportive and welcoming to their students. So I wanted to close today with a few data points and a few things to think about when we're thinking about student support. So these data are a little old. They're from last semester. So they may be different when we redo them in September. But in the first 2 weeks of the spring semester last year, students in Moody, these are Moody-specific data, 85% reported feeling nervous, anxious, or on edge. 67% felt lonely or isolated. 76% felt unable to stop worrying. Our students are walking around carrying a lot of burdens. And it isn't only the students who appear to be struggling, it's also our students with 4.0s. In fact, it's a lot of our students with 4.0s, right? This may be familiar. This may ring and resonate with you. But every time that I present these data, our faculty are either super surprised or absolutely not surprised at all. So I wanted to make sure that you knew our students are walking around feeling and thinking about a lot. But we have a lot of resources for them. We have an office called Student Emergency Services. And Student Emergency Services is the central clearinghouse for students facing an emergency. And a newish, it's been around for about a year, but a newish policy that's really, really important as you're thinking about your syllabus and your attendance policies is that individual faculty may not ask students for proof of an absence. If a student is absent and you need to verify the absence, it must come from Student Emergency Services. They are the central clearinghouse for all of that, and they make a determination about whether the information provided by the student warrants notification to you that they have been absent. Now, this is where it gets tricky. Student Emergency Services has as big a burden as disability and access and other areas on campus. So a student may be absent, and you may have a policy that allows 3 unexcused absences or 3 absences with proof, and it may take them 4 weeks to get you the letter. So that's a decision you have to make if having a strict attendance policy is important to you. And I say that because the third most popular reason that students end up in my office is because faculty have excessively punitive attendance policies where students can know and demonstrate content information sufficient to pass a course and are failing it because they simply didn't attend. And to me, that is problematic. It is problematic because we should be worried about what our students are learning and not how many days they sat in our class. Now, I will admit that there are lots of faculty who believe firmly and strongly in punitive attendance policies, and that that's the way that students get themselves to class and learn. But when I think about all of the times in the last 3 years that I have found out the night before I had COVID, that I have had an emergency on my way into work, that I have had, as I have, children with emergencies that have kept me from campus. And I think about those situations for me and all of the privilege that I have to manage and navigate and mitigate those circumstances. And then I think about the burden of impactful attendance policies on our students, and I know why sometimes students have to miss. Often when students miss our courses, it is a symptom of a larger problem. And rather than focusing only on punitive attendance policies, I'd rather attendance be used as a tool for recognizing and doing outreach, whether that's outreach you do or whether that's outreach you ask my office to do. If a student has suddenly stopped showing up, let my office know. We can find out what's happening from making an outreach from our office, which is a lot less frightening than from you, or going so far as involving the Behavior Concerns Advice Line, Student Emergency Services, and if warranted, UTPD and our emergency welfare checks. So think about attendance from a wellness standpoint and not necessarily from a punitive standpoint. And think about how are you going to help students understand your attendance policies and the expectations, and how, knowing that you can't ask for proof of an absence to excuse it or not without going through the Student Emergency Services, how that fits into all of the work and routines that you have to do. I will admit, when I started teaching, I would say to students, if you're absent, meet with me and we'll get together and make it up. That never worked as beautifully as I wanted it to, ever, right? And it also left me often making judgment calls about what was a worthy excuse and what was a not worthy excuse. And I don't wish to be in that business anymore. So I encourage you to think really deeply about this, because you as a faculty member can't make the judgment call by looking at proof yourself. The only judgment call you can make about an absence and whether it's excused or not is when documentation comes through Student Emergency Services. We also have a culture of sick students coming to class because they're terrified of your attendance policies. And I don't think we are yet, as a university, we have yet helped everyone realize how to be super safe. And I'm not just talking about COVID. I'm talking about flu. I'm talking about colds. I'm talking about the pink eye outbreak we had rage through one of our classrooms. All because students were terrified to miss class because of punitive attendance policies. I don't want pink eye. I don't think you want pink eye either. Yeah, it's good. Jennifer's giving me a face like, oh, yes. Yes. Pink eye and a microscope, folks. That's all it takes. Right? Student knew they had pink eye. But if they had one more absence, their grade was dropping by an entire letter grade. They weren't willing to risk it. So, that's one way that we can support students in distress, is by being really clear about our attendance policies. So here's a couple of resources. I'm just going to run through them very quickly. Student Emergency Services. That is the place to refer students who are having some sort of emergency or crisis, and they need someone to notify their professors. They need proof that they've been absent, or they need a coordination of care. You can also notify my office, and we can coordinate with Student Emergency Services. Either way, doesn't matter. We talk to them almost daily. All of our academic advisors here in Moody College are mental health first aid trained, meaning they are available and trained to de-escalate a student who may be having a mental health care or concern. They are not counselors. They are not here to provide long-term counseling, but they are here to assist in a first aid kind of situation. We also have a dedicated counselor, a Counseling and Mental Health Center professional who is co-located here in Moody College, who is dedicated to serving the needs of Moody College. Her name's Abby Simpson. I'll show her contact information in just a second. Her office is on the first floor. And she is also here, in addition to our colleagues at the Counseling and Mental Health Center, University Health Services. UT Outpost, you may or may not be familiar with. It is our campus food bank and our career closet space for students who may need assistance with food insecurity, or may need professional wardrobe, or even non-professional wardrobe. They both operate in support of students. And we have an Outpost snack bin in my office if you ever deal with a student who's hungry or in need. And then lastly, there is a Moody Emergency Fund. And I mentioned earlier that my office deals with scholarships and financial aid. We actually have an emergency fund. And the emergency fund is for those weird things that come up. I got sick. I can't afford the antibiotics that have been prescribed to me. We can help pay for that. I got a flat tire and I can't get to campus anymore because I have a flat tire. We can help with things like that. So just know, you don't have to know or make all the referrals yourself, but know that these resources exist and you can refer students to us for them. If you're ever worried about safety in our classrooms, if the student is well enough to be connected to a resource immediately and is not posing an immediate threat to yourself or others, the Counseling and Mental Health Center is the first place to call. 8 to 5, directly to the counseling center. If you're teaching after 5 or meeting with students or doing something like that, outside of business hours, there is a 24/7 crisis line. There's also the behavior concerns advice line. The top 2 are for crises. Like, I'm deeply worried that when this student walks away from my class, they may harm themselves. That's an immediate referral, and those 2 phone numbers will handle that with you. I have a student who's been doing some weird things in class, hasn't quite risen to a concern, but I want to talk to someone about it. That's our behavior concerns advice line. They help triangulate those weird signs and symptoms that we see and we don't quite know what to do with. But maybe you've reported it and another faculty member's reported it, and now their residence hall's reporting it. And now we have an entire behavior assistance team that is activated because of it. And if you don't know which one to call me. If it is a true emergency, call 911. All of the UTPD officers have also been mental health first aid trained, and so they are trained to respond in cases that we think are true emergencies. This is Abby Simpson, our care counselor. She is great that if you have a student who is not in like crisis mode, but who you really think they would benefit from talking to a mental health professional. You can make a referral to her. You can leave her a message. I will also send out the online referral form. And she reaches out to students very casually, very calmly, and says, hey, someone in Moody thinks you might benefit from having a chat with me. How's everything going? And it's just, she's even more sophisticated than that. I sound awkward when I say that. She does not sound awkward when she says that. But she's really good at helping connect students who are like, they should probably talk to somebody. She does the outreach. It's amazing. And she's here in our building. And she's dedicated to Moody students. Not all the colleges have a dedicated counselor. We do. Again, part of our culture of support and supporting students. And lastly, if you forget everything that I've said, call my office or send us an email. We'll take care of you and your students. I think I have about 5 minutes left for questions. So how else can I help you have a great semester?
I'm saddened and terrified by the statistics that you showed about
I'm sorry.
the level of stress and anxiety.
Yeah.
It's really helpful to ground us. You know, you said also that 30% of students have some disability. I think there's some obvious ones. Can you help us understand some of the less obvious ones? And I know that they'll come to us, or they should come to us, but just some idea of that would be helpful.
Yeah, so the Disability and Access Office works with any student who needs accommodations in order to be successful in the classroom. That can range from students with visual disabilities who will work with the Texas Center for the Blind to braille your course materials or things like that, dealing with students who are deaf and hard of hearing, who may need videos to be captioned, who may need interpreter services, who may need written copies of notes or things that you're doing in class. If I can recommend anything, it's turn on captioning all the time. Even if the captions are auto-generated and are bad, they are better than nothing, right? And we have students who need accommodation because they have ADHD, executive functioning disorder, auditory processing disorder. I've named like 3 of an entire diagnostic manual where those students might have accommodations for extended test taking on assignments. We have students who have medical disabilities, who, for example, are receiving treatment for an illness that makes them sometimes after a treatment unable to come to class, and that will be handled through the Disability and Access Office. Chemotherapy treatment's lousy, and the next day you might feel unable to come to class, but 2 days later you might be able to come to class. And so those are some of the things that might come through too. Note-taking assistance is another one that often happens for students, is getting someone in class to take notes and have those notes be shared. Copies of slides or PowerPoints is another way that accommodations are sometimes managed. There's kind of a whole range of things. I won't even begin to name all of the diagnoses that qualify, but that's kind of the short version of it. Corey?
So it's kind of directly related to that. I'd say one of the more challenging accommodations I've had requested is actually the note-taking. My general philosophy has been I don't mind video recording my classes, and I've offered that as an alternative, and students have said that's adequate, but I'm just wondering about the logistics of that. They say note-taking. How do you choose which students to take notes? How do you approach that process?
Yeah, so Disability and Access provides they have a whole like 3-page thing on note-taking. And there's a couple of ways. So one which is you ask for volunteers, one which is you incentivize note-takers by giving extra credit. And that I think it's been wildly successful. And you just say, notes are going to be shared, everybody take, and if you take turns taking notes, you can get 1 extra point. There's ways to do that. those are some of the two more popular ways to do note-taking. I myself have ended up basically a lot of time just recording my course, and that actually benefits all students when they can go back and look at the recording.
Especially for technical skills, I have a really hard time understanding how notes are going to translate to knowledge.
Yeah.
For the students.
Yeah, so, and if you ever have questions or concerns about something that's been asked and you're not sure how to accommodate it, I'm happy to help to talk you through ideas and suggestions and ways we can manage that. So, other questions? Yeah, Jordan.
Question about grade distribution.
Uh-huh.
The philosophy these days, or the current philosophy on grade distribution, how to think about that.
If you're doing your job well, all of your students should be capable of making an A. Right? That is not the case at every college across campus, but too many A's is not a bad thing. If you design courses that students can be successful in and you use principles of universal design for learning, and everyone can be successful in your course, an A for everyone is okay. And I actually start my course by telling students that all of them have an A right now, and their job is to keep their A. So yeah, there's not an expectation that X percentage get D's, F's, C's, etc. Not at all. Not at all.
I'm still stinging from my B in interpersonal communications. John Daly, 20 years ago.
That one hurts.
Quick plug for
That one hurts.
We can help you with that as well. If you haven't dug into Canvas yet, there is a tool that helps you ensure that there are several ways, just as Cassandra listed, for all of those folks who may need access to Braille. Maybe it is listening to an audio rather than reading the resource, all of the different things. We're not expecting you to create those, but there is a very effective tool you can use in Canvas. So we will be having more seminars on that as well, but feel free to reach out for a one-on-one, just a walkthrough, and we can help with that as well.
Yeah. Mary.
Question?
Yes,
Are
please.
you willing to share your PowerPoints?
I am absolutely willing to share my slides. I will do so.
All right.
I will do
Make sure
so.
we get to you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And I just want to comment, Jennifer, on your reaction to the data about students and how they're doing, because it's one that I have all the time, and I'm intimately connected to the data and what's happening with students. There are things that we do as faculty that make how students feel about their worry, their concerns, their anxiety worse, and things that we do that help make it better. I know many of us are loath to create a 20-page syllabus with lots of rules and policies and procedures. But the more that you actually spend time thinking about rules and policies and procedures ahead of time, the easier it is for students to understand the consequences of the decisions that they have to make. Really tough decisions every day. Do I come to class? Am I well enough to come to class? What is the consequence if I do this? If I fail this test over here because I spent all day working on this, how is it going to count in my final grade? So all of the ways that we can provide clarity in the syllabus can be really, really helpful in helping reduce some of that. I think in Moody we have a culture of collaboration, not competition. And I think that's sort of, Jordan, in response to your question as well, you're not competing against each other for the 1 or 2 A's that will be given out, right? And so helping students understand how that fits in as well, and how particularly in our disciplines collaboration is understood and rewarded. So I will admit, first day of my semester, I have a really long syllabus, and students always sort of start with a but every time that you can say, we don't have to go over this in a ton of detail, but if you want to know all of the ways that this will be calculated and exactly how I calculated, and if I round up a 89.5 to a 90, which is an A minus, or if an 89.5 is a B, all of that is clear so that I don't have to make those decisions, and particularly when a student's crying in my office, I don't have to make that decision. So it helps. The more transparency and clarity we can have about all of those things, about our assignments, about when readings are going to come due, or if deadlines get changed. Sometimes things happen. We have a winter storm. We're closed for a week. But when faculty take 3 weeks after that to adjust their syllabus, that's when we see huge spikes in students panicking. Do I need to drop this course? I don't know when things are due yet. So providing that clarity, I think, can go a long way in helping mitigate some of the data that we saw.
And your syllabus is a public document. These are posted publicly where the world can review.
Yes. House Bill 2504. Reach out to me. I hope to hear from you. Thanks for sitting through this, and to my virtual friends, thanks for being here. You're in great hands here for the rest of today with Mary and Shelley. Thank you all very much. Hook 'em horns.
Thank you.